All righty. So we want to welcome back to our community, who is no stranger to any of us, Reverend Mitch Austin. And the topic that he'll be speaking on today is creating a world that works for all. So we certainly, Mitch, it's always good to see you and welcome back. And a little bit about Mitch here is he was raised in the science of mind philosophy and has been at Centers for Spiritual Living practitioner since 2012 and became a licensed minister through Emerson Theological Institute in 2023. And Mitch also formed a Speak Team Inspire LLC, which includes spiritual counseling, the Rise and Speak Academy, and other self-improvement classes. And Mitch is also a member of the Amani Center for Ministerial Counsel and member of the affiliated New Thought Network and the creator and the host of a weekly show called Change Your Story, Change Your Life. So Mitch, we are certainly glad to have you back and thank you for being here. And without further ado, Mitch, take it away.
Excellent. So happy to be here with everyone. It's great to see all your faces and feel this sense of love and connection. I always love this group. Fun fact, I actually don't do many talks online anymore, but I love you guys so much. I can never say no, ever. Also, a little update to my bio. I'm now the spiritual director of the Sierra Center for Spiritual Living in Grass Valley. Just started in October and very excited to be with such a loving group. I want to thank Terry. Thank you for all of your work getting me like set up and all our multiple emails. You do a fantastic job. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and all your support. So it's getting a little crazy out there, isn't it? Getting a little judgy. It's getting a little judgy. It's still judgy. Anyone tired of it all being judgy? I am. And they say you should never judge somebody unless you walk a mile in their shoes. That way you're a mile away and you have their shoes. There you go. That was just for you, Jeff. That was just for you. Thought I'd open up with a little humor. Anyone remember the song? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Yeah?
Yep.
We all know that song. Isn't it a beautiful song? And the truth is, the world needs love more now than ever, real love. Not just the sentiment or good intentions of love, but the love that is courageous, the love that is wise, the love that can have difficult conversations when we have opposing views and attack the views and not people. Yes, we need this now more than ever. Not just good intentions. You ever hear that the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Anybody ever hear that? Yes? Yeah. And good intentions aren't going to be enough because we can see what's going on in the world. We're in a major transition in every sector of the world, whether it's climate change, economic, health, whether it's relations between countries. Even our children are suffering with mental health issues at younger and younger ages. And this didn't just happen. This didn't just happen, right? We know behind every effect is a cause in the unseen, right? It's about consciousness. I was watching a TED Talk the other day that was talking about creating a world that works for all. And the woman is an environmental scientist. And she said, we have more man-made things, airplanes, clothes, houses, trinkets, stuff. We have more man-made stuff in the world than biomass. Take that in for a second. Then biomass, then nature living organisms and stuff. And she's very worried that we're reaching a tipping point that we can't come back from. And I think right now we're in the which way is this going to play out in humanity? And so that's why we're going to be talking about creating a world that works for all. Because we can no longer use our good intentions as a free pass for our negative impact and actions. They just can't. We can't afford it. We can't afford it in our relationship. We can't afford it with our relationship to the earth, to each other, to our bodies. I had good intentions last year to start working out and treat my body better. How'd that go? It was good for 2 months, right? So I think we can all do better in that area. And I'm not saying this to shame or blame anyone, but crisis is at hand. And the good thing about crisis is it has a tendency to wake us up to a level of change we would normally embrace. Everyone, that makes sense? Yeah? I think we've all had that at some point. I love what Barbara Marx Hubbard says. She's an author and a futurist. She says, the problems are bringing about unprecedented innovation and transformation. Humanity is being born as a universal species, she says. The current crises that have brought us to this point where we can have the capacity either to extinguish ourselves as a species or bring us to a deeper understanding of our inherent connectedness. We are one. We are one. And didn't we see that during COVID, just how connected we are? That heightened awareness of what I do and what somebody else is doing could affect us all in a really dramatic way. I think that was one of the big gifts of that event, was to wake us up to that something all the way around the other side of the world called a virus is something I need to pay attention to because it could be at my doorstep. And the world is really getting smaller with technology, isn't it? We can have experiences of places all around the planet just like that via technology. In putting this talk together, I studied the work from Dr. Sharif Abdullah. He's brilliant. He's an award-winning author. He's an advocate for inclusivity and social transformation. And in his book, he says there's 3 kinds of people, 3 kinds. He first talked about the keepers, the indigenous people who kept our covenant with the earth and treated the earth as sacred and as something connected to the self and the soul and their well-being, right? Indigenous people don't even have a word for possession. That doesn't even make sense. They don't own anything. Everything is one. We're all connected in ownership of everything and each other. So there are the keepers. And right now, the modern world is working with some of those keepers, indigenous people, in an organization called the Pachamama Alliance. Anyone hear of the Pachamama Alliance? Yeah, it's a brilliant organization. If you haven't yet discovered it, I invite you to go on and see the good work that they're doing. The second group of people he talks about are the breakers. So for many years, for eons, we had the keepers taking care of the earth and managing resources and staying in balance. But then arose the consciousness of the breakers, or what we might call the modern world, that saw everything as separate, that saw everything in nature as a resource to be used or people to be used, and that it didn't impact anything or anyone else when you did. And there was a big piece of work that came out of Europe as this breaker consciousness was expanding called the Doctrine of Discovery. Who has heard of the Doctrine of Discovery? Yeah. I invite you to Google that term and learn more about it. But it was an official, let's say, free pass to countries and explorers in Europe that said, you, because you're divinely ordained, can go out anywhere you want, and anything you find you can take back for our good. So that's when we started going out to countries and taking their stuff and taking their people, and we started seeing slavery arise, right? We saw this big explosion of using stuff for our own needs and wants and power and those types of things. So this created this separation consciousness, this mechanistic view of how our world works. And we're still seeing that play out in the modern world today. Strip mining, right? How we're treating our garbage, how we're treating our water, our environment. We're seeing it in our policies with each other, amongst countries. So this separation consciousness is kind of what we grew up in. We were just swimming around in, and we're all trying to wake up from it now and move to that third kind of person that Dr. Sharif talks about, the menders, the people sewing the earth and people back together, creating climate friendly practices, promoting kindness, equity, stability, oneness. And I think in our young people, we're seeing a lot of them come up as menders. They're more interested in social justice and peace and equity than even their jobs. They will just leave a job. They don't have good policies and they'll go stay at home. Maybe you've heard of a few adults staying at home. It's kind of a trend right now. So that's our job, is to be the menders and to wake up to that separation consciousness is no longer working for us. And so as we come together and we can start this process in intention, right? In intention, just like Doug had talked about, having that hope, and that hope is creative and it out pictures. And as we step in and remember on a regular basis the true essence of our oneness, and we start uploading the hope and start seeing the world as healing, that starts to outpicture, and we start to create a collective wave. So Center for Universal Oneness is creating a little wave of consciousness, right? For healing, for mending, for oneness, right? Which is even in your name. And that wave joins up with other waves. You're going to join up with My Center's wave and other groups, the indigenous people, all of us then create a tsunami of change that is felt in our world. And you know that feeling you get when everyone is in sync? Ever been to a concert and you feel like there's this point in the concert where you're just one? You're just like one body in this sea of people. And it's this feeling tone of our oneness. And I think the more we can step into that, the more we can begin to heal the world. Because here's the deal. The world's not working. I don't think that's news to anybody, right? Poverty, social inequity, struggling environment, financial policies that are going bankrupt, poor health. And you might ask, Mitch, what's the solution? What's the solution? Well, the solution is a new solution. And it's a spiritual one, I believe. One that we build in consciousness first. Here's what Ernest Holmes said at Asilomar. He said, there is an imagination beyond ours. There is a feeling deeper than ours, yet we are akin to it. Who listens closely to his own soul shall hear the song no other person can sing. Who listens to the harmony of their own being, though he be in the desert or on a mountaintop alone, shall compose a symphony that no human instrument had been attuned to or can play in the wonder and reverence and on the heartstrings of the person who created it. See, in our own mind, in our own soul, for we are that instrument. We are that instrument to create a new song, a new solution, a new way, a new paradigm of going from breakers. The breaker consciousness needs to end. And now we need to create what the mender consciousness looks like. And it's going to look like a lot of different things, So there's 3 ways I'm going to propose that we can use our power for good to create this world that works for all. The first is to believe that it's possible. If we don't believe it's possible, we won't take action. Right? Somebody can tell me something, but if I don't believe it, I'm not going to act on it. So we got to start with the power of belief that this is possible, a world that works for all. The second is to vision and pray. Vision and pray. Do our work in the unseen. Everything comes from the unseen before it comes into manifestation. So we need to start doing our work there. And the third thing is to use our responsibility, our ability to respond to make it so. And don't dismiss the power of small acts, for they amplify in the unseen, demonstrating that we're serious about shifting the model, shifting the consciousness, creating this new space. Dr. Sharif, in his book again, he says this: a world that works for all is one where our mundane actions serve the deepest individual and collective needs. I'm going to say that again. Our mundane actions serve the deepest individual and collective needs. In such a world, the possibility of the beautiful and the sublime exists because we have taken care of the ordinary. You ever hear you take care of the small things, the big things take care of themselves? That's basically what he's saying. Yeah, when I was putting this talk together and I read that and I was in my office and I was about to throw away something recyclable and I went, oh, I better go grab that, right? That was the trigger in my consciousness. That little act, that mundane responsibility that we have. So let's start with belief. I'm going to quote a little verse out of the metaphysical handbook called the Bible, which is a metaphysical handbook. It's been said to be many other things, but in a science of mind tradition or a unity tradition, we see it as a metaphysical handbook. And in Matthew 8:13, the verse says, "Go, it will be done for you just as you have believed." And notice what it starts with: go. It starts with an action, right? It's telling us not just to believe and it'll happen. It's saying go. It requires our movement, our demonstration, our faith that it is already so, right? Acting from that belief state. Because when we act from that belief state that it is already so, it is done for you. It is done for us. Because we won't have all the answers about how to create this new world. We just won't. But we got to believe it's there. And we got to start visioning into possibility so that we can get that help from the imagination that's beyond ours. So I invite you to sit in the question, because it's easy to say, well, what's the use? I mean, I'm just one person. I mean, look at all the changes that are coming. Look at what all these groups of people believe. Look how the trend, right? So it's easy to give up, but we can't give up because what we create in the collective is actually what outpictures. And honestly, if we give up, what's the alternative? You know, it's kind of like choose your pain. Choose your pain of trying or choose your pain of not trying, and what you get, right? So you get to choose. Number 2 is to vision and pray, right? Vision and pray. Even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. What could this new world look like? How would I be moving through the world? How would my family be moving through the world? How would my community, my state, my country be moving through a world that works for all? What does it feel like to go to the supermarket in a world that works for all? What does it sound like when you're at a festival or you're at a gathering? What are people saying? Are they saying sweet things to each other? Are they showing empathy? Are they asking questions about things they don't understand to create bridges and connection? Right? These are the kinds of things we can start to create thought forms so that they start to outpicture. And if you want to vision and pray using something written, and I can send this to Terry, the Centers for Spiritual Living actually has a global vision that is designed for us to continue to add our attention to. And it starts off with, we envision all people, all beings, and all life as an expression of God. What if you just spent 5 minutes just thinking about what that looks like? How we would treat each other when we realize this type of high expression of everything in our environment. And then the next phrase says, we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and a connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. So that was phrase number 2. And I'm not going to read them all, but I'm happy to send this to you. And if you took one of these little phrases, 5 minutes, just read it and dreamed into it, you're adding to the collective. And I don't know about you, but when I read those, it makes me feel good. Makes me feel better about what's going on. I love what Socrates says. He says, the secret of change is to focus all your energy on not fighting the old, but on building the new. That's our job, to build the new through consciousness and through movement. So what new are you dreaming into the world? Right? What new are you going to dream into the world? And part of our prescription to add the new good to the world is to look at what causes us pain or makes us sad. That's ours to dream into the world in a way that's healed. And for everybody, it might be different. I know seeing animals at the shelter makes me really sad, right? So now I'm dreaming into the world, a place where every pet has a home, a loving home, right? That's what I'm doing. And as we do this, we're adding our verse into the universe, right? Into the one song, verse, uni one, verse, song, one song, right? So we're all composing a new song for us to hear, experience, and listen to. And then lastly, is to use our responsibility, our ability to respond, right? We can all sow seeds of positive change. We can be metaphysical Johnny Appleseeds everywhere we go. When we see discontent, we can say a little prayer of peace and harmony when we witness that. You know, especially during the shopping season. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of discontent of people trying to get the last thing, right? Or trying to like hurry with the kids, you know, just sending some peace, some prayer, some ease. We can do that anywhere we are, right? Because with our actions, both in mind, but also in moving our feet, right? Taking care of the mundane. So as we move throughout our day, we can start to put on the lens of, is what I'm doing working for everybody? Like me putting the recycling in my garbage versus taking it out, right? Is what I'm thinking something that works for everyone, for me and for the collective, right? So as we start to pay attention to the mundane, do I need to buy something new or can I buy it secondhand? Right? I do more secondhand shopping now than I ever have. And I'm finding all kinds of treasures. It's actually kind of fun, right? So I'm really questioning whether I really need something new, right? Because I'm adding to all of that stuff on the planet versus maybe doing things differently. So that's our call. Here's what Charlie Chaplin says. He says, the trouble is you won't fight. You've given in. Think of all the power that is in the universe, moving the earth and growing the trees. That's the same power within you if you only have the courage and the will to use it. The courage and the will to use it. In other words, that comes out of love, right? Really strong love. And I know it's not easy and convenient to do it in a world that's used to breaking things. So it's going to take conscious alignment along with our courage, and our will to do this. So I hope that you will join me in remembering and believing that it is possible to create a world that works for everybody. And let us start creating that new one song in our minds and our hearts as we vision and pray. And let us use our responsibility to go shopping at the secondhand store, to recycle, to think about whether we need to buy something to help a neighbor, to demonstrate oneness, maybe to build a bridge with somebody who's different. And in part 2, we're going to take on some of these subjects next Sunday as we continue this discussion in creating a world that works for all. I like to close with this little story, this beautiful story, and it's told a lot amongst indigenous people. Legend has it that one day there was a huge forest fire. All of the animals fled. Suddenly, the jaguar saw the hummingbird go over his head and flying towards the fire. He was greatly surprised, but he didn't want to stop. Instantly, he saw it had happened repeatedly until finally the jaguar had to ask the little bird, "What are you doing, little bird?" The bird replied, "I go to the lake," the bird answered. "I drink the water with my beak and I throw it on the fire to put it out." The jaguar smiled. "Are you crazy?" The jaguar asked the little bird, "Do you think that you're going to put out the fire with the little beak of water yourself?" "No," the hummingbird said. "I know I can't, but this forest is my home. It feeds me, it shelters me and my family, and I am grateful for that. And I help it grow by pollinating its flowers. I'm part of it and it's part of me. I know that I alone cannot do it, but I have to do my part." At that moment, the spirits of the forest who listened to the hummingbird were moved by the little bird and its devotion to the forest. And miraculously, the spirits sent down a rainstorm to put out the fire. I like to believe that our little beaks of help are being heard by that bigger presence and imagination, and will bring us everything we need to create a world that works for all. Thank you. Thank you. Blessed be. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, should I take this message into prayer? So let's just take a deep breath in. Go to that innermost sanctuary of the highest being of our presence, that innermost part of us that was never born and never dies, that is intimately woven into the fabric of all that is. It is wise, it is strong, it is creative. And I know from the wisdom of our hearts, the strength of our hearts, the guidance of our hearts, we each pour into this new unfolding of this new experience of what we call the world. As we co-create a world that works for all, and it begins in consciousness. And I know that this consciousness is now being born in us, through us, and as us. That the changes, that the unfolding are all moving everything, all living things on this planet to higher ground. And so I just give thanks for remembering this truth that there's a power and presence for good, and I can use it. And it is working with us, collaboratively going out before us and preparing the way. So I just rejoice and give thanks. I give thanks that the work is already done, that the new world is already there in consciousness and making its way into our experience. Thank you, good. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God. I release this word, and together we say, and so it is.